Friends, did you know that over 60% of your first-time clients are never coming back to your business again? They are going to your competition. That is so painful, and it doesn't have to be that way. That's where Maya comes in. Maya is the ultimate marketing software for the beauty and wellness industry. We have a proprietary funnel utilizing special algorithms to help connect the right consumers with the right providers at your business. So what does this mean? This means Maya helps you get higher spending clients you love to work with who stay the long haul. If you want to increase your revenue, increase your client count, increase your average ticket, and increase your new client retention, then you need Maya. Go to the link in our show notes to get your demo of Maya set up. Or go to joinmaya, that's MYA.com, joinmaya.com, and see why over 500,000 consumers have trusted Maya and the businesses that we work with to find their perfect beauty and wellness pro. We have your back, we always will, and we promise you will love Maya. Thank you for joining me. This is Katie Whitledge with a Beyond the Technique podcast. Guess who I have today? First time guest, Ivan Zoot is here. You are going to be so fired up. If you're not already following Ivan, I have the link in our show notes for his Instagram for you to do that. But listen to this. Ivan is a speaker, author, podcaster, and industry trainer. He's written 15 books and counting. He does not slow down. His energy is next level. You may have seen him in or at Barber Evo magazine, at the ABS shows, featured within PBA, BarberCon, Premier Orlando, IBS New York, Modern Salon. The list goes on. And I really respect Ivan. I love what he's trying to teach everybody in the industry because it really is to make you and your teams more successful. Today, we're talking about raising your prices the right way. We've seen this done the wrong way. And I think we're in a boomerang season, right? Where we've done some things and now we're trying to reel it in. Well, I'm not going to speak on that. Ivan's here to speak on that today. Without further ado, help me welcome Ivan Zoot. Welcome to Beyond the Technique.
Well, hello, and thank you so much for inviting me to spend a little bit of time with you and to contact and interact with your community. Excited to be here and excited to talk about this stuff. It's all I ever talk about. So, let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, okay. So if I were to just meet you off the street, I may not be like, wow, Ivan is an on-stage educator for the beauty industry. Ivan looks like he is or could be like my financial wealth advisor, or you know what I mean? Like, so tell me a bit about yourself and how did you originally get into the beauty industry?
Well, you know what? I wear a lot of hats in the business. So, yeah, I could be a lot of things, but I've been in the business almost 40 years. Of course, I started with a cosmetology license, went back to school later, got a barber license a little later on. I started out as a shampoo girl, sweeping other people's floors and folding other people's towels and rinsing other people's hair color. I worked full service in a very expensive day spa. I worked for a low price, high volume chain, which I really loved. I worked my way up through that chain, and then it was time to open my own place. I opened my own hair cutting establishment. We didn't do other services. We just cut hair because I came from a chain that did that, and I knew that end of the business. Ultimately sold that when I had gotten involved in platform work, when I broke the world records, when I started writing books. Kind of the education half of my industry took off after that. But I ran trade shows and education all over the world for one of the largest manufacturers in the industry. I ran a school division for a large school distributor. And then almost probably a dozen years ago, just said, I'm the world's worst employee. I should probably just do my own thing. And launched my own business focused on my products and my inventions and my books and my teaching and coaching and everything. And that's what I do. 2 days a week, shows all over the place. And when I'm not doing a podcast or doing a YouTube video or writing a book, I like to fish. So that's about it.
I could totally see that. And, once I saw the cover of one of your books, and by the way, I'll have the link in our show notes, everybody listening, for you to check out Ivan's website. There are tons of resources there. But I also could say, like, you're a football coach. Like, I could see you being like that, are you a dad?
Of course. Yeah. Actually, of course. I not only am I a dad, two boys, but I am a grandpa.
Oh,
I have a little granddaughter. She's a year and a half old, and she's just not quite ready to go fishing yet, but we're getting close, and that's going to be a huge adventure as we get into that. But yeah, I already did the dad thing, and that's worked out okay. Neither of them have criminal records. They both have jobs, so that panned out okay.
good for you, Ivan. Well, you are passionate and you have a lot to give, and you're very, very strategic about and passionate about this topic of pricing. Well, before we get into like how we do it right, what have you noticed in the last few years where we've gotten it like wildly incorrect?
Well, I think if we want to just kind of look at the arc of pricing in the industry, we went through a period of time, and while I hate to do this, it is what it is. We divide our lives and time up into decades, and as of late, we divide our lives up into pre and post 9/11, pre and post pandemic, pre and post market crash 2008. We use these guideposts as a way to kind of understand our experiences.
Mm.
And big picture for our audience, and I think many of our audience know this, many veterans know this, veterans of the industry, but I think it's the newer folks, the people that are going to say have 5 years and less experience. And I think it's important to recognize, as older folks in the business, more established people in the business, we have a whole sector of the industry now who never cut hair before the pandemic. We have, that's a huge piece of the business now. It's more than 20% of our industry don't know anything about anything we ever did before the pandemic. So for their benefit, let's understand the arc. We can all, continue to thank Vidal Sassoon for teaching us how to cut hair as opposed to hair shaping. Haircut prices began to climb. The 70s, the unisex era, haircutters all of a sudden gained a level of respect they didn't have before. And we saw price increases. And then we leveled off. And for a long, long time, we saw the erosion in our pricing as it was impacted by economic circumstances, inflation, pricing, the economy moving ahead, and haircuts just sat there. And they sat there for a long time, and we lost a lot of ground. Our purchasing power and our income relative to the economy dropped for a long, long time. And I talked about pricing. I created July 1, Raise Your Haircut Prices Day in the USA. That is our haircutter holiday, not because you're supposed to go up on that day, but as a day and a time to really focus on pricing education, which is exactly what yours and my conversation is about right here today. But long story short, the pandemic flipped the switch. All of a sudden, costs went up, our occupancy went down. I mean, none of us ever imagined we'd ever be told we can only use every other chair in our shop. And by the way, we can't have a waiting room. This was crazy, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And we came out of the pandemic, and all of a sudden, our industry had the price increase bug up their butt, and you couldn't raise your prices high enough, and you couldn't raise your prices fast enough. And God bless the industry, boy, we did it. We jacked them. And very quickly, and now I'm getting into the modern day. I went from Vidal Sassoon in the 60s, and I got us up to the 2020s. All of a sudden, whoa, the pricing pushback from the client community has been intense. When you combine pricing resistance, whoa, how'd that haircut get so high so fast? Disproportionately high so fast. When you combine that price resistance with tip fatigue, there's another biggie out there. tip fatigue, these insane expectations. And it's not just the beauty industry, it's the food service industry, and anyone in a gratuity based and or gratuity focused service industry. The tip fatigue is real. When you roll those two things together, and I'll share with your audience, in January of 2024, I made a prediction, my prediction for the year for 2024. And I threw it out there and I let it sit. And I didn't talk about it again until January of 2025. And I was pretty right. And I had predicted that 2024 would see in our industry the loss of a lot of operators. We lost a lot of people during COVID. They quit the industry, they left and didn't come back. They found other jobs, blah, blah, blah. But it happened again in 24, several years later. And it was because of dropping chair occupancy, of people failing to fill their book, failing to fill their chair, and failing to earn the income they had hoped for, needed, and wanted. And it came down to client dissatisfaction with the price value equation. How much are you trying to charge me? And in exchange for that money, what are you giving me in terms of perceived value, which is both technical and the experience, the non-technical aspect of what we do? So, long story short, a large percentage of our industry has literally priced themselves out of the business. And clients have done what's called trading down market. Now, the cool thing about trading down market is there's always a winner and a loser. And what I mean by that is this. If you're a woman who's been spending $200 for a haircut at a fancy salon, when you didn't feel the price value equation was there, you went looking for a $100 haircut in the suburbs. If you were a $100 haircut customer in the burbs, when you felt that price value disconnection, you went looking for a $50 haircut in the neighborhood. If you were a $50 customer buying a haircut in the neighborhood and you were uncomfortable with the price value equation, you went looking for a $25 haircut at the mall. And if you were a $25 haircut at the mall and you were uncomfortable with the price value equation, you went looking for a $15 haircut in a shopping strip. And if you were a $15 haircut in a shopping strip and you weren't happy with the price value equation, you went to Walmart and you bought a clipper and a scissors. And you did this in the basement at home. And when I say there's a winner and a loser, the suburban salon, the neighborhood salon, the chain salon, the strip salon, they saw new traffic and new business coming down from above, which is exciting. They lost business to somewhere below them in the food chain, but they saw business coming down from above. And the intrinsic key to this is, and I experienced this as an employee in 2008, when the economy crashed, the chain salons in America went bananas because they figured out we've got new people who previously did not consider us to be a haircut option coming to visit us for the first time. And they understood that if the client finds satisfaction at a lower price point, they're fundamentally changed and they're never going back up. And this is what devastated the industry during the 2008 crash, because you heard salons say, when things get better, my people will be back. And they never came back. Same thing with the pandemic. When the pandemic is over, my people will be back. And they never came back because they went somewhere else. They found a better value, which doesn't always mean they paid less. It's that, what do I get and what am I paying, that price value balance. And when that happened, the client was then fundamentally changed. And that brings us to where we are today.
Man, I see why you speak everywhere all the time. I want to, like, I'm soaking every little thing up, because here's the thing. You mentioned something really powerful. Like, my daughter is almost 3. She will never know life, thank goodness, having to wear a mask. And I'm very thankful for that for her. Now we have all these practitioners who will never know what life was like before they entered. However, if you don't understand history, history will repeat itself. So what you're saying about what happened in the 80s, is now repeated. And like, I didn't know that. I was not a hairdresser in the 80s. So we need people who have the experience, and we need to pay attention to people who have a lot of wisdom in this industry. So keep dropping it on us. So we put ourselves in a situation. So what I'm hearing you say is, if we are already at the top and we increase prices, we're probably in a pretty vulnerable spot, and there's many gaps on our books, and we are going to have a harder time convincing consumers that we're worth it if we're already at the top of our market.
I put a little asterisk on that though. And I don't want to imply that if you're at the top of the market, you're going to have a hard time building. The answer is, if you're at the top of the market, you're just going to have to work hard to justify why you are worth what you're asking. And by the way, everyone has to do that at every level. Even if you're a discounter, you got to be able to justify, why am I $14? Why am I a low price? You know, I always use the example. It's a great story. I went to beauty school with a guy. We started night beauty school together while still working full-time jobs. When my enthusiasm for beauty school was greater than my enthusiasm for my full-time job, which didn't take very long, I quit my job. I went full-time beauty school, and I got a job at night delivering pizzas for Domino's. And thank God, because that way my wife and I had something to eat. However, this guy and I, we started beauty school together. We graduated from beauty school within a week or two of each other. He lives in my neighborhood. His daughter and my son went to high school together. So we're very close socially and geographically and everything. Fast forward a few years, he owns a salon in my neighborhood, and he gets $189 for a haircut. Not bad. Chicago suburbs, rocking and rolling. Now, I live in the same neighborhood. I work on the other side of town in a little barber shop, and I am doing $19 haircuts. $189, $19. This guy's getting 10 times more in the same neighborhood that I'm charging. Well, let's explore this a little bit. What do you get for 19 bucks in my barber shop? Well, name. The greeting is, "Hey, buddy. Nice to see you, buddy. Have a seat, buddy. I'll be with you in a minute." You get a handshake. You get a consultation, same as last time. You get a haircut, 2 dirty jokes, an invitation to buy a bottle of hair gel, and then you get the hell out of my chair. Because at $19, I cannot afford to give you more than 9.5 minutes of my time. I need to do 6 haircuts an hour to pay for college and grad school and a Ford F-150 and fishing gear and groceries and the rest of my life. And it worked for me. Now, on the other side of town where my buddy's getting $189, what do you get for $189? Well, when you walk up, when you pull up in front of his, when you pull up in front of his shop, there's a guy in the parking lot with a windbreaker with the salon logo on it who takes away your car. When you walk up to the front door and you reach for the handle, before you can touch the handle, the door is opened by a greeter. Someone else brings you a smock and a cup of coffee. Someone else leads you back to a chair, gives you a magazine. Someone else gets you all set up and ready to go. He comes out, does a consultation. Someone else takes you in back and gives you a 14-minute shampoo. Someone else brings you back to his chair. He cuts your hair. Someone else blows you dry. Someone else touches up your makeup. Someone else handles your retail recommendations. Someone else rings you up. And then the guy with the windbreaker brings your car back. There's a lot of people getting paid. Now, the important thing to recognize in this little story is the customer who sits in my chair at $19 must feel as though the experience was worth $19.10. The dime is what is called added value. Value is defined as the feeling that you're getting more than you're paying. That's a value. Hey, I paid $6 for that. It was worth $7. That's a value. So my customers need to feel that what I am doing is worth $19.10. My friend at $189 his customers need to feel that what they are purchasing is worth $189.10. It's the same dime. The dime represents the added value. And here's where our industry gets in trouble. If you charge $50 for a haircut and you deliver a $25 value experience, you're going out of business pretty quick. If you charge $25 for a haircut and you deliver a $50 experience, you're going out of business just as quick. The trick, the secret to being successful in our business is balancing the price value equation at any price point. So those who've gotten their prices ratcheted up pretty high, my challenge to them is talk to me about how you create the perception of value at your price point. It's the exact same conversation I want to have with the haircutter who pre-pandemic was $15 and is now $18. However, I want to point out that's not the problem our industry has. The problem our industry has is pre-pandemic, that haircutter was 15 and now they're 35. And that's where the problem is coming from, because there is no way you can tell me or prove to me, I'm all ears, show me how you can go up that much and maintain the perception of value in that demographic customer segment. I believe it's really, really hard to do. And I believe people have backed themselves, painted themselves into this pricing corner. And the only way they see their way out of it is through discounting. And discounting never works.
I agree wholeheartedly. Man, you could have been a preacher, Ivan.
I think I am.
Yeah, you are. You are. Okay.
Just a question. It's just a question of which gospel are you preaching?
Yeah, right. Well, okay. So you have a strategy on how to increase pricing the right way. Is this about timing, like you mentioned, July? Or is there more to it? I know there is. Tell us
of course,
what your strategy is.
It really comes down to, I'm a numbers nut. To know your numbers is to grow your numbers. That which gets measured gets improved. It all starts with the daily, weekly, and monthly aggregation of data. And by the way, you talk about the young folks in the business. You and I are of a generation in which all of this, and I don't even know if I have one here on my table. I'll see if I can find one. No, I don't have one here. But you and I are of a generation in which all of this was done with a pencil and a calculator and a spiral notebook, writing things down. Today, our industry has the gift and the luxury of the booking app, the data. So every time you engage in a transaction with a customer, your electronics are aggregating data and crunching numbers. So what I tell people is you may be paying $30 a month for booking software, and I don't care whose platform you use. There's good, bad, and otherwise, but the real value in booking software is when you press the button that says reports. It's in the numbers. You've got, you say you run into me. If you run into me at 7:00 in the evening on a Thursday in the aisle at Walmart, hey, Ivan, how you doing? The next thing out of my mouth is going to be, hey, it's nice to see you. What was your rate of occupancy last week? And when I ask you that number standing in the aisle at Walmart, you need to know that number stone cold sober to the second decimal place. You need to be able to look me in the eye and go 68.23. You need to be that on top of your numbers, because pricing decisions are not made with your gut, your heart, or your head. They're made with data, they're made with facts, they're made with confidence, and they're not made with anxiety. Because when you use the data, you have all the information you need to make good decisions. So, simple answer to your question. When it comes to pricing, July 1, our haircutter holiday, Raise Your Haircut Prices Day in the USA, I created that almost 15 years ago to foster conversation, sharing, and growth on the subject of pricing. If you choose to go up by the calendar, July 1 is the best day to go up. And I'll explain that if you wish. We can dig into that in a minute if you're going to use the calendar, but I don't suggest that the calendar is the number one way to make pricing decisions. For those of us who have fallen behind the industry, the calendar can be a good way to play a little bit of catch up. But as we've discussed, our industry is not really in the catch up game anymore because we blew that. The number one determining factor for price increasing is your rate of occupancy. It is the mathematical answer to the question of the appointment spaces that you have on a percentage basis. How full are you? It's a real mathematical measure of busy. Everybody that's listening has been busy, and you've had a day when you're busy, and you've been busy. And then at the end of the day, when the dust settles and you count the money, there's no money, and you're going, well, I was busier than that. Busy is not a feeling. Busy is not, I'm tired at the end of the day. Well, maybe you didn't sleep well last night, or you stayed up too late watching TV. Busy is math. So here's the deal. The goal is 80% occupied. 8 out of 10 of your appointment spaces are filled. 2 out of 10 of your appointment spaces are empty. Full is not 100%. Anyone who is full, anybody who's running 100%. So you go to a hair show and you're standing in line. If you're a guy, you're standing in line to buy food. If you're a woman at a hair show, you're standing in line for the bathroom. But you're standing in line and you're talking to the people around you, and you hear somebody say, oh, I'm slammed. You can't get an appointment with me for 8 weeks. And the person behind them says, 8 weeks, my God, you can't get an appointment with me for 10 weeks. And these people are bragging. They're not bragging. That's horrible. There's nothing worse than being overbooked like that. You're stressed, you're anxious, you gotta pee, you're hungry. It's horrible. It's no way to live. Your full income should be based on 80% occupancy. You need air in your book. You need room to breathe. You need room for walk-ins. You need room for add-on services. You need room for take-home hair care product conversations. You need all this space in your book. And if you're jammed, you're leaving money on the table. It's basically economics 101. Go to your local community college and sign up for a 101 level econ course. And somewhere in the first 3 weeks of that class, you're going to hear the phrase supply and demand. You only got so many appointments. You only got so much time, and you got to fill it. When it's full, you have too much demand and not enough supply. Pricing is used to regulate occupancy. Occupancy is used to determine when it is time to go up. My book, The Professional Haircutter's Pricing Playbook, walks you through all these formulas. It's a fill in the blanks book. Use a pencil. Next week, next month, next year, as your business grows, you come back to the book, you erase the old numbers, you plug in the new numbers, you work the formulas. You'll use the book for 25 years. A $25 book, you'll use it for 25 years. But it takes you through these formulas real simple. In a nutshell, if you run 80% occupied or more for 6 weeks in a row, based on client visit interval, you can sustain a 10% price increase. Because here's the good news. Now we're talking gospel. The good news of the gospel of pricing. If in a perfect world, and the world is not perfect, I understand that. But in a perfect world, if you're 80% occupied or more, that means you are good and people like you. That's how you measure that. 80% occupancy with an 80% repeat request rate and 80% rebook rate. Those are your 3 key statistics: occupancy, repeat request rate, and rebook rate. It's all in the book. If you can run 80, 80, 80 on those 3 stats for 6 weeks, you are healthy enough to sustain a 10% price increase. In a perfect world, if you go up 10% of your customers will go, I'm out. Can't afford this guy anymore. I got to go someplace else. Goodbye. And in a perfect world, if you go up 10% and you lose 10% of your customers, you're earning the exact same amount of money with air in your book, with room for referrals. Now, remember, birds of a feather flock together. Your top 90% customers have top 90% friends. Dirtbags are friends with dirtbags. So if you have a client, what's that?
I said preach.
Yeah, if you have a client who doesn't respect you and show up on time, who doesn't buy take-home hair care product, who doesn't leave generous gratuities, and who does not refer her friends,
they're going to be the ones that complain about your price increase.
they're going to be the ones, oh, you raise your prices, and they're lying on the floor in the waiting room like a trout, thrashing around going, how could you do this to me? And the answer is, in a perfect world, and the world's not perfect, you'll lose those people. And your top 90% customers will refer their friends, and you'll get more top 90% customers. And you repeat this cycle over and over and over again. When you can run 80-80-80, occupancy, repeat request rate, and rebook rate, 80-80-80 for 6 weeks. So that, one of the questions I get is, so wait a minute, Ivan, how often can I go up? And the answer is, as long as occupancy, rebook rate, and repeat request rate do not slip, in theory, you can go up every 6 weeks. And the way you play this game is, as soon as your occupancy, as soon as your numbers drop below the 80-degree threshold, what do? As soon as your numbers drop, you double down on all the things you did to get busy in the first place. You do good work, you take good care of people, you smile, you say please and thank you, you ask for referrals, you rebook appointments, you do all the fundamental things that our business is built on, because you have the faith, the confidence, and the experience to know that these work and you will grow, and then you get back up over 80. And then you raise the price and you falter a little bit and you climb again. And this cycle repeats itself. And you know what that's called? It's called a career. And one day you realize you got 40 years of doing this and you're kicking ass and taking names.
I could do this with you every single week. This is so much fun. Okay, so I'm going to offer a strategy. Just
you know what? You can do this with me every single week. It's called paid coaching.
your plug. Okay, for everybody listening, I have the link in our show notes for you to get Ivan's pricing playbook. Okay, yes, if you're watching, he's holding it up. It's worth it. I love that. I want to add value only because this is my shtick. Is if those clients that you're going to lose, the 10% that you're going to lose because you raise your prices, if they're not crappy people, then we want to have Maya in place to position them with your junior stylists that are a good fit for them based on their price point. So for those of you listening with teams, use this to your advantage to keep those, because you talked at the beginning about the premium, go to the next level, the burbs, then they go to the neighborhood, then they go to the shopping. You could keep all those transitions within your one place of business if you do it correctly.
Totally. You've got levels in your salon. Just because they're falling out of your chair doesn't mean they're falling out of your business. And also, this is a key strategy. If you do a lot of working with and you do a lot of coaching of team managers, team builders, and owners, I know, I don't have to ask you, I know one of their greatest challenges is getting out from behind the chair to be able to do the real valuable work of coaching, training, mentoring, and developing their staff. What better way to do that than manage the supply and demand of your own chair, allowing your fall off to then become the clients that fill your developing team? Oh my God, just the only difference you did is you just didn't take it out of the building, and you're absolutely right.
Man, I get so lit being around you, Ivan. This is so great. So, okay, a salon owner's listening and they're like, you know what, Ivan? I agree with you. We want to do this, but we all know that owners execute once and sometimes the struggle is to maintain this behavior and this practice. What is the best practice for this? Is it as simple as putting in your calendar a reminder every 6 weeks to run these reports to see if it's time? Do you do it per person? Do you do it?
Wow. This is where, so this is where ownership and management brings with it a huge mantle of responsibility. You need to be looking at every team member's numbers every day. You need to be looking at their numbers weekly and monthly. You need to be looking at individuals as well as the team as a whole. If you're a level system salon and you've got different team members at different levels, you need to be looking at everybody as a group in their individual level. I've got my juniors, I've got my mid-stylists, I've got my seniors. You need to be looking at how are the seniors performing. And then, and this is where it's tough, you need to meet with your team members once a day, once a week, once a month, once a quarter, and annually. Now, all of a sudden you're going, I don't have time for this. And the answer is you do, but you're using that time to do $25 haircuts on Mrs. Smith. You need to be away from the chair. So here's the deal. The daily check-in is quick. The daily check-in is, hey, Katie, I noticed you had a really good day yesterday. Congratulations. And your retail numbers were up. By the way, how's your mom feeling? She was sick. That's the daily check-in. That happens in the dispensary. That happens in the break room. That happens in the parking lot on the way into the shop. That's that daily touch point. The weekly touch point, and that daily is, we're talking about a 3-minute interaction, maybe, not even. The weekly touch point is 10 minutes. It is when you find the time and you present them with a piece of paper that is their printout for the week. What did your numbers look like for the week? How did this compare to this week last year? How does it compare to the other people at your level in the shop? And tied to that was mini celebrations. We want to find reasons to celebrate the good things when they happen, and identifying, and this comes from one of my bosses back in the day, identifying growth opportunities. Okay. That's a fancy way of saying this is where you screwed up last week. And we're going to identify it as a growth opportunity for you for this week. Okay. We're going to put that spin on it. So that's the weekly. That's 10 minutes. You present them with the data. And by the way, once there's a habit and the repeat of this, they're expecting you. If you have a doctor's appointment, and you don't show up and give them their piece of paper the 4th week, when you started this 3 weeks ago, they're standing by the door going, where is she and where's my paper? Because they're going to get addicted to this support. Because in the case of a lot of folks in our business, no one has ever given a crap about them at this level. You know, their parents didn't care about them like this. Even their grandma didn't care about them like this and put this kind of time and attention and care and focus into them, exclusively them and their well-being and success. They're going to get addicted to it. And it's a beautiful thing. The monthly check-in is a little bit of a deeper dive on the numbers. The quarterly, and again, now when we get to quarterlies and the annuals, these also involve the whole team, where we're now celebrating together. We're marking milestones together. We're acknowledging someone leveled up in the system. Someone got a price increase. Someone hit a retail number they've never hit before. And these celebrations, and then of course, annually, annually, we're going to have a meeting where we're going to talk about the numbers, and annually, we're going to have a meeting where we go out and celebrate and do these things. But literally, I'm sorry if your listeners are owners and managers, I'm building you a life of meetings. But at the end of the day, that's the real business you're in. And I always make this point with people. If you rent chairs, you're not a salon owner. If you rent chairs, you're in a real estate business. You're a landlord and they're tenants, and that's the extent of the relationship. But if you have employees, you're also not a salon owner. You're a personnel manager. You're a coach and a team manager. And your job is not running a hair salon. Your job is coaching, mentoring, and guiding the careers of your team. That's your job. And your job title, and with it, the job description that goes with that. So once you understand what business you're really in, I don't care if it's haircuts or hamburgers. It's not really that different.
Ivan, you are incredible. And I want every owner listening to go and tap into all of the resources you provide, your social media. And I can't wait to see you at Premiere Orlando, Ivan, so that we can meet in person. Before we're done, what would be some final words of encouragement for everybody listening today?
You know what? At the end of the day, none of us went to beauty school because we thought it was going to be tricky. None of us went to beauty school because we thought it was going to be complicated. None of us went to beauty school because we thought we were not going to like it. We went to beauty school, really, at the end of the day, because we thought it was going to be fun. You got to keep it fun. I believe this is the greatest industry in the entire world until it's not. Until the clients suck the living life out of you, until your coworkers make you want to kill them, until your boss is, horrible. But when it doesn't go down that road, my God, it's the greatest business in the world. Remember why you're in it. Remember you're here to have fun. And you're really here, at the end of the day, yeah, we make hair shorter. Yeah, we change the color of hair. But the real business we're in is we're in the business of building and maintaining relationships with humans. That's all we really do. And that can be fun. And if you have the fun with it, my God, by the way, one day you're going to wake up and there's going to be this massive pile of money. And that's cool too.
Yeah, it's all cool. And you are cool, Ivan, my
Oh my
fisherman.
God. I need to introduce you to some people to tell them that I'm cool, because I'm at a point where very little of the world thinks I'm cool anymore.
Well, I know I know a good thing when I see it. So I appreciate you, Ivan. Thank you for joining me today. It's been awesome.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I know I did all the talking, but I get excited about this stuff. There's so much to share. And at the end of the day, with all of the struggles and things, the upside on all this is just huge, huge for everybody.
It is. Well, and I appreciate all of you joining us here week after week. If you appreciate this platform, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening so that more people like you will discover Beyond the Technique, where we're here to change the way that you are supported in your business. Until next time, have an awesome day and stay strong.